Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm excited today. I have my new friend, Elizabeth Eiss, with me. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. Tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I'm delighted to be here today. So I am the founder and CEO of a company called Results Resourcing, and we are basically wanting to resource results for solopreneurs and small employers who are looking to scale. And I do that by matching them with vetted virtual assistant teams that are based in the United States and Canada. And really, they can outsource a lot of that back office work that keeps them from working with their clients, generating revenue, generating impact, because they get bogged down in the back office work that every business has to do to function effectively. So I'm really a scaling expert, and I help these small businesses achieve the impact that they want by helping them outsource the back office.
I love it. Now, I'm going to oversimplify, but I feel like today's conversation is about time, and you're literally bringing people their time back. Is that too oversimplified, or is that a fair statement?
That's a superb statement, actually. In fact, I talk a lot about the concept of the ROI of time. In fact, we built a little calculator that helps people understand that time is not free. There's a finite amount of it, and it is the entrepreneur's most valuable resource. And so how they choose to invest their time, and that investing to me is investing in things that grow a business, serve clients, have impact. And spending time is on the stuff that is a cost that the client doesn't pay for. And so people use those two words interchangeably, but I'm very careful about wanting to help clients invest their time and have more of that time to invest by really outsourcing the stuff that is a cost to the business but has to be done well. That's really what our teams love to do best.
I love that. And for what it's worth, you have no idea this, but I actually, part of my programs and the coaching I do, I help people separate where they're either spending or squandering their time or investing it. And I call it the heaven or hell matrix. And it's not to judge the actual task as good or bad, but there's energy draining things that I call hell. And, I am on the spectrum or two. So there are certain things you can't make me do no matter what. I know I should do them. I can't do them. But then there's the things that I should be doing that drive my business forward and make it strategic. And I think that's where a lot of smaller businesses and especially solopreneurs, they mistakenly say, my time is free. It's cheaper if I do it. And then I look at it and say, well, what's that actually costing you?
Yeah, no, I think we're in complete alignment. I really try to have very simple ways to talk about this. And to me, it's that the core work of a business is the stuff that generates revenue, has impact or value to the market that an entrepreneur is trying to serve. Anything else is non-core work. It may be important, but it's not really the work that entrepreneur should be doing. So we built this little calculator that I do not use as a lead magnet. I simply want to help people understand the value of time, but it starts out with, what is an hour of your time worth? It takes like 3 minutes to do. I'll share the link later. But
yes, please.
Takes 3 minutes to do. It's what's an hour of your time worth? What do you do for a living to deliver value? And it's not that I care, but it's like I want people to be in that CEO mindset, not the tasks, but the doer stuff. But what are they trying to accomplish in the market? And then how many hours a week do they work? Then basically I know the value they put on their time, how much time they work, and then it's simply a matter of, all right, well, how many hours are you spending actually delivering that value to the market? And how many hours are you spending on email, customer support, invoicing, content writing, SEO? I mean, all those back office things. And I'll tell you that no one ever says their time is worth $20 an hour. The average of all the people that have ever taken this survey is $177.
Wow.
But 43% of their time is spent on their core business. 57% is on the non-core stuff that doesn't pay them a penny, that costs them money. And my theory is if they can apportion just a few hours. That's the starting point. Take 2 hours out of that back office work and redeploy it into stuff that generates value. I mean, it takes a leap of faith that you're actually going to generate the value, but that's what you've got to do as an entrepreneur. And that's really the opportunity cost of using your time, spending your time on that back office work.
You're speaking my language, Elizabeth, because I talk a lot about that. And it's not necessarily the time you're wasting, but it's what are you not getting done that you should be doing. No judgment, but a friend of mine, she came to me and she's like, I've been in business 6 months and I'm struggling and I can't figure out why. And she's like, I learned how to do my own website. I learned how to do this. I learned how to do that. And I'm not kidding. I said, where's your payment link? And she went, what now? That's like, that's the problem. There's no front door for a client to come in. And I think that's I love my entrepreneurs, but sometimes we forget the obvious piece because, well, we're designing this and we're designing that.
We're in love with our ideas.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We're like, oh, everybody should be excited about this, but they're not. They don't know it exists yet. So, and that's the other piece I look at is, so I used to do this with business owners where they would bring in their spouse and their spouse would do the bookkeeping because it's free. And I'm like, but it's not free because you're paying me to fix the mistakes your spouse made. And your spouse is wasting time on this activity they didn't want to do in the first place. And you're fighting about it constantly. If you think bookkeeping's expensive, just go pay a divorce lawyer and see what it's going to cost you to divvy up the company. But a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And they think I need to do this all. So let's talk about how you came into this business, because I am fascinated because entrepreneurs have a problem, they solve it, and then they go, I bet other people would want this solved too. So how did you come to be the resource that puts together teams with clients?
Well, it's a really interesting story and not one I would have predicted. I spent years running very large businesses in the insurance industry, which was actually a fascinating training ground because the clients that we served were all commercial businesses. The ones that succeeded were the ones that were well run. The ones that had losses were the ones that weren't well run. So I really got to see what made a good company run. But I got a little tired of being in the insurance, being an insurance executive. But I was in operations, largely, and I joined a startup 24 years ago. And I'd always loved technology and finding ways to use systems to do things better. And so I joined a startup, but that startup didn't survive for a number of very valid reasons over time. But, I didn't want to go back to corporate America. I discovered entrepreneurship, and that really was a huge change for me. And I was doing some consulting, and this was 15 years ago when gig economy workers, freelancers, most people thought really just couldn't get a real job. Not that they were specialists or experts wanting to be in business, but I really discovered that there were amazing people out there that offered freelance skills, and I would hire them on my project teams. And this was the genesis of results resourcing. But my clients started to ask me, oh, that Jeff on your project team is great. Can you find us a Jeff that can do X, Y, or Z? And that's really what started it. And initially, I was very manual. It was like making PDFs of things. And I quickly got tired of that. And I thought, all right, well, how do I systemize this? Because so many people were asking me this. And they were going to the big platforms, but there was no human help. And smaller businesses didn't have my background, so didn't know how to write a job description or really how to interview or a whole set of things. And actually recruiting is non-priority work. I mean, it's back office work. A client's not going to pay for doing that unless you're a recruiting firm. And so, at the end of the day, I realized that there was a need out there for solopreneurs and small employers to have help finding great freelancers, because many times the work that needs to be done is not full time. And you hire a generalist that is semi-skilled in a lot of areas versus hiring several different people who are expert in these areas, I think the business stands a better chance of leveraging those skills to become a bigger business. And so at the end of the day, I just wanted to solve that problem. How do I help these micro businesses grow without having to hire, average talent, when the way to succeed is by hiring great talent, but not on a full-time basis. And great talent doesn't want to be employed by a dinky little brand, So
Yeah.
It was really a perfect match. And really, at the end of the day, to jump to the conclusion, is I realized also that small businesses didn't need a person. So hiring a freelancer was not the secret, because the freelancer could do the immediate thing, perhaps really, really well, but then didn't want to help manage somebody's inbox, or couldn't do that next thing that they needed, SEO versus bookkeeping. And so really what I landed on was the model of finding virtual assistant agencies or pre-existing teams that already work together. So really, if a small employer could come and get access to a team that already works together, that could provide a number of different roles at excellence. And that was really that was the lever. And so that's what results resourcing is all about today, is matching clients with freelance teams so they can get quality talent in a number of different functions, and they don't even have to know all the stuff they need up front. They can start with a few hours. We don't charge minimums. So they can really start with just a few hours of a bookkeeper's time, for example. And then if they need a content writer or they need something else, they can migrate to that need as well. And it all happens under the same umbrella.
I love that, and I think that's the missing layer that I've been looking for. So thank you for coming into my orbit. I've been the guy who hires the generalist to replace me as the generalist, and then we end up sitting there staring at each other going, okay, how do we do this? And then it's like, why did I hire you? And why am I the project manager? And at one point I was like, I feel like I'm full-time managing my little minions, and no disrespect to them, but they were generalists and I brought them in for specialist roles. That caused me a lot of pain. And it was a little bit like, I described it, trying to sleep in a tent with a bunch of mosquitoes, because I was just constantly getting buzz. And it was like I had to shut everything off on the weekends so that they didn't bother me. And I was like, I don't hate myself, so why did I do this?
Yeah. Well, that's pretty normal. I mean, it's like people don't realize that there are options. And then I think fundamentally all this outsourcing is all about trust. And so what people tend to do is ask their neighbor or their friend or their relative, who do you know that can do X, Y, or Z? And despite good intentions, those people don't necessarily know, those trusted advisors don't necessarily know the ins and out of a business, or maybe they just know somebody that, somebody used so-and-so. But that doesn't mean it's the right resource for that particular project or that team. So I think at the end of the day, it's important to understand that trust is the most important thing. And trusting the source of where you're getting talent, and then trusting the talent to actually do the work. I mean, we had a fairly recent job that didn't succeed, honestly, because the business owner would not share access to information, and the team was hamstrung in their ability to support this person because there was no trust. And that's also why I really advocate starting small. Instead of signing on to some 20-hour retainer, start with a couple of hours and something that's low risk. So you get to know each other, get to trust each other, and you can build a relationship that then, I mean, my favorite words are when a client says, "Can you do this?" Because that means they've trusted us to do work well. And now they're thinking, oh, maybe they can do this for me too. Those are magic words for me.
I love that. And I think that's the piece that is so often missing, is the trust and the time to build the trust. Because again, a lot of organizations, and I've hired VAs who are soloists, And there's immediate trust of, I'm hiring you for X hours. Now, I do find it fascinating that those conversations are how many hours are you going to work and how much per hour. And then, oh, by the way, here's what I need you to do. You're hiring the wrong people for the wrong things. So you work with agencies, and I think the value add is I hate managing people. I do not want to ever have that conversation of, hey, let's do a project update. Either the work's done or it's not. I don't want to talk about it until it's done. How do you step in? How does your process keep the founder free to be crazy and do all weird things while you guys are running the back end of it?
Well, I think it's all in how we set up our business model. And like any entrepreneur, it's been an evolution. I mean, I just kept testing things and really doubling down on the things that work. But essentially, I am not a broker. I mean, I am very much involved. I mean, everything runs through my platform. So, I've taken a lot of sales, marketing, administrative effort off the shoulders of the teams that I partner with too. So there's real advantages to working with me, but we need to be completely aligned in how we're going to do things. And so one of the first things I did was I created, we basically have 4 levels of jobs, from a basic VA on up to an online business manager and a lot in between. And so we've pre-agreed on these roles, these rate levels, and what these roles encompass. And so at the end of the day, when I'm talking to a prospective client, I can say with confidence that these teams, yes, if we agree that this is an executive assistant role, this is what it means, and this is the rate. And, it's very transparent. It's really easy to get up and running. But then I'm actually, I don't get involved in operations. I'm actually meeting with the owners of these virtual assistant firms every week. And we talk about every client to make sure that we're in alignment, because I have a relationship with the client at a different level than the VA team does. And so it just works as a partnership. And, it's a very symbiotic relationship. And, it's worked quite well for us, results resourcing, as well as the teams that we work with. And then ultimately, the measure of success is the client.
And I think the key word in all of that is the word relationship, because that's, I think, where a lot of people are missing. And, I've seen people hire, don't judge me, but I've seen people using Upwork or Fiverr or whatever. And at that level, you're just delegating tasks, and you're hoping that the task is cheap enough that you don't mind if you get a mediocre result. But in this case, what I'm hearing is you're actually resourcing actual roles, which, by the way, is also not in the strength of most entrepreneurs. Is let's label this and give it nice little titles and boundaries. We're generalists. We wake up and say, okay, today we're going to launch a podcast. Well, great. Let's figure it out. But I think I'd rather see experts and see what they do with that. So how do you vet the agencies you're working with? How do you make sure that they're following the relationship goals that you have?
Well, I think the first is getting common ground, and so I take great pains into establishing, if you will, the ground rules and the process. And not every virtual assistant agency wants to work that way. Many want the business, but then they want to handle it the way they want to handle it. But that's not what I'm promising. I mean, I'm promising results, and that's not subject to retainers or all other things that they might have it with their service. So I'm very selective, with the groups that I work with, and they really see that partnering with me, that I'm partnering with them. It's some symbiotic. It's not that one party wins out over the other. It's got to be a win-win, and if it's a win-win, then everyone is completely focused on how do we make it win for the client. And so, having the ground rules in place is part of it. But it's interesting, when I converted from matching with individual freelancers to teams, I went back and I looked on my platform at the freelancers that were really successful. And I found that they weren't individuals, that they were teams. And that was really the spark. that they already had a preformed team. So today, when we meet promising freelancers that are either teams, or individuals that want to be part of a team, we put them through a training program that actually one of the freelancers I work with built. I added my own 2 cents to the various modules on why does it matter to the business owner, the different things. But I also, we apprentice people to existing successful teams. So they learn how to do business in an effective way. And again, I want to emphasize, I don't try to dictate how a VA agency does business. We just need to have a complementary way of doing business. So they already have to be thinking the way I think. And that's the success, not that they just want somebody to hand them off a client and let go. I mean, that's just not, at the end of the day, clients ultimately have access to me or to the team or both as they need it, and hopefully to grow their businesses. Maybe they want to chat with me again about, well, what's the best way to do this? I'm open to that. I'm kind of a business and a mission at the same time. I really want to help solopreneurs and small employers scale. They're 99.9% of the businesses in the US and probably in Canada as well.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, they also account for 99.9% of the business failures. So there's a reason there.
Yeah, but with the right support, those statistics can really change because they're not going to be spending time on stuff that doesn't generate value.
I love that. Now we're looking at this. So one of the things I know I'm going to hear about from people is, well, I can go offshore and it's cheaper. And I will say yes. And how much time are you investing to make it cheaper? So you work with North American, Canada, and US based agencies. What's the difference in terms of hourly rates versus competency? To put it bluntly, I guess.
Well, I in a sense refuse to get into that discussion because there's high quality people everywhere, and there's resourceful people everywhere who speak and write English well, and and if somebody finds talent that they can work with, great, because even a lot of firms offshore, they just change their hours to work US hours. So even time zone doesn't always present a problem. But at the end of the day, what I'm really focused on is the fact that people that grew up in the United States or Canada understand the culture here, understand how business is done. They understand one province to the other, one state to the other, and the differences. And those are just in their bones. And that's really what I offer, is talent that understands it can perform higher level work because that's second nature to them. Put me in the Philippines, I wouldn't be particularly effective. No matter how well I don't speak the language, and even if I did, I didn't grow up there. I wouldn't know the ins and outs of that society. And so I think it's a different thing. So to me, I think outsourcing to any resource you can trust is a good idea. The cost differences can be significant. A $5 resource, versus a $20 resource offshore, is material. And if people have budget constraints, that's a true factor. It's just a matter of finding the resources that can work for them. We work with plenty of clients that have offshore resources. We just don't do that work. We do the stuff that the offshore resources can't do. And so it's really finding that combination. And in fact, a little bit of a tangent, but I have this thing that I've called the Delegation Engine, and I write about it a lot. It's part of my whole philosophy about the value of time. And I think outsourcing is not just about people. Outsourcing first should be to process. So business owners should be thinking about their core processes as a business asset. It's not some boring process thing that's nerdy to say you like, but it's like, what is the core thing and why do people buy from you? That's IP. So process focused on your IP is a business asset. And outsourcing process is possible if you have it systemized. write it down. You might just have one or two things that you write down, but that's how you deliver value. So to me, outsourcing starts with outsourcing to key processes. Then you buy your tools. You don't buy a CRM first, because then you're going to retrofit your process to that CRM. You buy your tool that suits your process. So tools, and I include AI in that. So technology tools and AI, those are simply mechanical tools to be used. And they're super, I love AI, but it's the 80% rule, it's good up to 80%. Then you need the human premium to come in and make it human, or check for errors or hallucinations, whatever it might be. And then to me, the last thing is to outsource to people, because it's the most expensive, and you want to leverage people's brains and their creativity. And so don't saddle them with boring process when process could do it or tools could do it. So to me, it's really finding those three things and how they work together, whether it's an offshore person or an onshore person. It's really, it's those three layers that I think is really the magic.
I love it. And I think most people start with people and then go, why doesn't this work? And I think, you and I can have an entire conversation just about systems. Don't get me started on that, because I don't stop. But what I love about AI is it's really good at identifying and optimizing the existing system, but you still want somebody who can look at it and go, we're missing this step. There's a minor thing we're missing. And I think that's what I'm hearing with the resources you're bringing in. First of all, they have the vocabulary. So exactly when I say this person does this job, there's the 10 bullet points or whatever in their job description. We can have a smarter conversation, because I'm not hiring them and saying, well, they manage social media, but they don't use LinkedIn. Well, I use LinkedIn, so how do we work together? I think there's a lot less wasted time. Now, I'm going to ask some specifics, because I think I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who are time blind. They literally don't understand where their day goes. They get to the end of the day and they're like, what did I do today? I'm not one of those people, but I do obsess over them. What are some of the quick wins you can give somebody so that they start to go from, working from sun up till sundown to living like a human being and going home at, a reasonable hour, shutting off on the weekends?
Well, I think first is I'm going to definitely send you the link to my ROI of time calculator, because that's going to be an eye opener for people, because they are going to be asked to, like, what is an hour of my time worth? And so with that framework, I think that light bulbs go off, like, oh, I didn't really realize how much it was costing me to do all this stuff that absorbs so much time. So I definitely would recommend that. And then I think the next step, and it's really follows on from that, is like, what are the core things that you do to deliver value to your clients? And they're not 50 things. It's probably 5 things, and there's maybe 1 or 2 core things, and the other 3 are kind of things that augment the first 2. So, I mean, it's like people have no trouble making a grocery list or a list of what errands am I going to run in what order, on the weekend. And it's like, I think sometimes there's this mystique about business and that it's really hard to figure this stuff out. But if you really just try to be simple, like, okay, what are the things that are going to deliver value to clients today? And you do those first. Those are really the key. And it kind of gets into, you've probably all seen versions of this, but if you have a glass jar and you have rocks that are your top priorities and sand, which is all the other stuff you need to do, if you fill the jar with the sand, all the stuff that you've got to do, the rocks won't fit in. But if you put the rocks in first, you accomplish the things that are the most important to your business, then you fill whatever sand the jar will allow. Then that is one of those ways where it's just like the things you don't get done end up being the things that weren't actually the most important. And I think sometimes that can be an eye opener for people too, when they stop getting so caught up in the, did I check enough boxes today? And because sometimes being successful at the big rocks is a little harder to define.
Yeah.
And you've got to sit with it and kind of like the classic work on the business instead of in the business, and have some faith that work's going to pay off.
Well, one of the sayings I love to paraphrase or quote is, when you say yes to too many things, you end up saying no to the big rocks that you should be doing. And I think that's a lot of people. And I would say one of my little sand pieces that I tell people to stop filling is, I can learn how to use this tool.
Oh, yeah.
It's hire somebody who knows how to, I can build things with my hands. Doesn't mean I want to or should. And, if I can make money, it's a funny thing, Elizabeth, but I love trades. Most tradesmen and women, they know the value of their hour. For whatever reason, when I talk to professionals, they'll tell you their billable hour, their rate, but they don't actually know how many billable hours they get in a day. So therefore, what's their actual hourly rate?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think that, take us. I actually see a lot of people take the ROI of time calculator more than once. I mean, I don't have names or emails or anything like that, but I have an IP address, so I can see, this block of this person took it 5 times at different values or different splits in terms of how they spent their time. So it's interesting to see how they come to grips with that.
I feel like that would be a really fascinating global study of entrepreneurs, because a lot of them will say, well, I'm worth X dollars per hour. And it's like, but your activities don't match that. So let's talk about the process. And I want to be mindful of your time. How does somebody, so they take the ROI calculator, what's the first step to eliminating some of the mundane time that's dragging them down in their world?
Well, I was going to say, based on your comment about the CRM, for us, it all starts with a conversation, often with me, just about what's the state of the business, what kind of business it is, what are they trying to accomplish. And, in short order, I'm really able to isolate what are the key things that they probably need help with. And CRM is often a big one, because people can get a CRM because it looks so easy. You subscribe and they get it partially set up, but they've never optimized it. And really, that's the key to a lot of technology systems, isn't just getting it set up. Then it's some glorified Rolodex. You really need to get it workflow set up so it does work for you. So that's a really big one, that when people come to us, they need help with getting their CRM optimized. They need help with their inbox, scheduling. And, a lot of people don't know how to set up a Calendly, or which one to pick. I mean, there's so many software tools out there that, we have a feel for which ones most people use, or the pros and cons with using different ones. So for us, it starts with a conversation, and people can sign up for what we call a jumpstart call by going to our website, which is resultsresourcing.net or .com. And they can read about, all the different solutions that we offer, actually access to the ROI of time calculator. It's free and it's in resources. But that's really the key, is getting a conversation started, because, just typing a need into a text box isn't going to get people what they need. So at the very least, even if they're not ready, to engage us for our services, I hope they walk away knowing more, that they're normal, that what the struggles they're going through are generally what everybody goes through. And here's ways to solve these problems, so you can invest your time in things that grow and scale your business.
And I think I'll underline that, because it's the shame of I should be doing better that keeps us from talking to people. And I think you're very down to earth, and I think you're easy to talk to. People can learn more without a big commitment. So I'm going to encourage them to take that calculator. I may have to find a way to do a study of that, because I'm guarantee people overestimate what they think their hours are worth, and unless they're actually driving sales, they're doing more work than they should. So
Yeah, billable versus actually paid for hours.
that's a sobering number. I've seen it many times. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for being on the show and sharing your amazing mind and your message with me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. This was a treat. I really enjoyed it. It was very dynamic, and obviously we think a lot of alike on many subjects. It was very fun.